Another week of camp is completed, and we're going to dive in and go over all of the updates and news and notes that you're going to want to know about Boston College football as they head into the 2022 season. All of this and more on today's Locked On Boston College.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. It's Mondays with Mitch, and with me, as always, I have Mitch Wolfe. Mitch, how's it going?
It's going good. It's exciting that we're getting into camp now. We're learning a lot about the players who, have been performing well, but we're also getting some kind of disappointing information about injuries and all that jazz.
Yeah, so, it's natural with camp. You see other teams that have been hit with it. Sam Hartman has an injury or something going on that we don't know about. But Clemson just lost a major player. Notre Dame just lost a major player. Florida State lost a major player. In Boston College, they have two players right now that we're not sure what's going on with them. And that's center Drew Kendall and wide receiver Jaylen Gill. Now, some context, Drew Kendall he was obviously practicing for a while. You saw him in some of the pictures. They talked about him. And I think it was for Tuesday's press meeting availability. He was supposed to come and talk to us. And all of a sudden, Jack Conley walks in. And we're like, oh, something different. And then he misses the next two practices. Hafley, he was up front and said, he's missed practice. He's hurt. Nothing. We're not expecting anything big from this. I don't know much more. I don't know what's going on. Which he said that. I was like, okay, whatever. But Kendall has been out, and in his place, Boston College has replaced him in practice. Again, they've been trying the other guys out with converted defensive lineman Jackson Ness. Now, Ness got rave reviews from Hafley. Hafley raves and reviews most of his guys. You'd have to kind of do that. But as the center for the Eagles, I guess he kind of moved over from defensive line to center over in the spring. Coach Googs was really happy with what he was able to do, and he's worked his way into that rotation. Mitch, how big of a loss would it be if Kendall had to miss substantial amount of time?
I think it's concerning, and it's weird because obviously Kendall really hasn't played meaningful or significant snaps with the team. So, and he is young, so you might think it doesn't matter as much, but he is one of the higher rated prospects for BC, like ever since the recruiting rankings started. So that is concerning to not have him there. Luckily, I think it's better at least that it happens now as opposed to like midway through the season when you kind of have to reshuffle things. At least now they're getting to experiment with different guys at the position. I know there was some pictures or clips of Dwayne Alec playing center who has some experience there, also a defensive line convert. And, Jackson Ness you didn't really know where he was when he was playing defensive end based on his size, it was kind of difficult to tell like where he was going to fit in on this defense. So him switching to offensive line makes things a little more, it kind of makes sense. A lot of guys make that conversion because maybe they aren't just as athletic as they need to be, or they just aren't as, the temperament between offensive defensive lineman is very interesting, the difference between the two. So maybe he was just more destined for an offensive lineman's temperament.
Yeah. So, it's interesting to see position changes happen. It's just part of the game, especially at the college level. And I feel like I want to know more if it was made out of desperation or if it was made out of this is a solid player.
I think given that this switch happened in the spring, so I think he's just been working on switching over. So I don't think that it was kind of
more when I was saying desperation, I meant more like lack of depth in the.
I do think that was the case at the time when they decided to make that switch because they did have, given the guys they were recruiting on the defensive line, Ness didn't really fit the profile of guys they were looking for. And they said, well, we do have some depth concerns at offensive line. So, we can switch you over and try to teach you that.
So, Hafley has said right now he's day to day. And if you followed along, I'm not judging Hafley at all in the way he deals with things because he can do it whatever way he wants to. It's his program. He's respecting his kids. We've seen different examples of what day to day can mean. With different guys, and day to day could mean Drew Kendall could be back on the field tomorrow. Day to day could mean that Drew Kendall will be back in 2023. We
Jeff
don't know.
Hafley would have a great career as a like hockey injury report designator where it's just like upper or lower body injury and they don't really have to give timetables for them. So it's just like, oh, it's above his waist and he's, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, he was interesting, and my eyebrow raised a little bit when he said, "I don't know what's going on with him," and I was like, oh, "Okay."
I would say, given that, it was a late switch over to Conley, it might have the injury might have happened, that day. And that's why they made that switch. And I mean, even, you look at a guy like, Zach Wilson just had a injury in the preseason for the Jets. And some people saw the video like, oh no, his ACL's gone. And then, later in the reports, it says, yeah, we think it's intact, but he's got to have tests and everything. So, they're probably doing tests on it. And, if it was something serious they were concerned about, I think we would have a little more information.
Right. And to be fair, for those folks, I honestly don't care what Jeff Hafley does. Like, that's his prerogative, and to his kids. I'm just busting chops here. It's his call. Now, the second injury that popped up came up on Sunday, and that was wide receiver Jaylen Gill. Now, Gill had been reported from some of our practice reports that he had been missing, had been out. He was there earlier this summer. Again, we saw him. We talked to him earlier this summer, and now he is out. Hafley says this one doesn't seem like it's that big of a loss. And given the practice reports we have, and again, I don't fall in love with practice reports because I don't know how much you can take out of it, but I feel like this is a position that BC is strong enough that if Gill has to miss a couple weeks, they'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, if they could afford a loss at any position group, I would say that wide receiver would be the one, aside from, Flowers missing time. And I think Gill is a very good receiver, definitely a good number 2 to Zay. But him being out does give the opportunity for guys like Dante Reynolds and Lewis Bond to kind of get some more reps and show what they can do and prove that they might need to, get some more reps in game. And, I think I talked on last week's episode about the offense this was on the spaces that we talked about this the other day, where the BC offense doesn't really use, 4 wide receiver sets very often. I think they use them less than 10 times. So, they're really only going to have 2 or 3 wide receivers on the field at any given time. So, if it's Zay and, take your pick of the 2 guys I just mentioned, Joseph Griffin is supposedly having a good camp. We are big Taji Johnson fans in this podcast. We hope he can get some playing time. So, it's just a matter of, having a veteran guy who, what he is being out is disappointing, but it does give the opportunity for other guys to step up and, maybe establish themselves as good playmakers.
And before we get into our next segment, we mentioned Lewis Bond and Dante Reynolds. I got the chance to talk to John McNulty and Tem Lokabu for the first time during camp. And a lot of the talk is usual kind of things you hear. But one of the things McNulty said about Bond and Reynolds struck out to me, that he was like, and, it could be just, flowery imagery here, but he said, when I watched the tape, I said of Lewis Bond and Dante Reynolds playing, he goes, am I watching Zay Flowers out there? He goes, that's the amount of explosiveness the 2 of them have. And I thought that was really high praise of the 2, especially we've heard buzz from Hafley and other guys, more, Djokovic has mentioned those 2. So I can't wait. It sounds like to me, Bond is destined to be getting major snaps this year. He's out there with the first team a lot. You read the reports with him with Djokovic a lot. So I feel like he will. I don't expect Reynolds to. He may be a guy that's more of a depth player, but definitely would be a position to watch. Now, in a moment, we're going to get into Emmett Morehead. Another, everyone's favorite conversation is the backup quarterback. He's the most popular guy on the roster. So we'll talk a little bit about Moorhead and what are realistic expectations for this backup heading into 2022. Now, LinkedIn Jobs is one of our special sponsors of Locked On Boston College. And as you gear up for fall, you need to get the right people on your team to help your businesses fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates who just have the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to hire and interview. It's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Did you know that LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster? Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn jobs? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. I am also the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Sports Network. If you want all that insider camp information, I'm there a couple times every week to watch camp, to go talk to the players, talk to the staff. I have it all. So come over, become an insider, and you get even more access. I had stock risers from camp, all sorts of good stuff. It's 30% off for the year right now. So if you want to go over to Eagle Insider and sign up, it's a good deal. You also become part of our message board and all sorts of great little perks and recruiting information throughout the year. Now, we're talking about summer camp. And as I was alluding to at the end of the first segment, the backup quarterback is one of the most popular positions on any football squad. If you talk to anyone, any team that has any inkling of struggles, the first thing they talk about is the backup quarterback. And I admit, with Boston College for years, guys like Troy Flutie, Jeff Smith, you name it. They were the EJ Perry. They were
shout out John Fadule.
Exactly. They were the guys you always wanted to talk about getting in there. Now, with Dracovic, you're feeling pretty good about him. But there's always that lingering question about injuries, and we talked about that again this week, saying that he needs to be less reckless with some of his plays, which I was really glad to hear him say that. Mitch and I talked about that more in depth last week. But Emmett Morehead is now the backup solidly, and Hafley talked about Moorhead this week. I asked him about it. He said, Moorhead's development is like night and day. You're talking about a kid that came from a school where they didn't have a senior season because of COVID-19. He didn't get a chance to play, and then they threw him in last year, and it was very evident that he was raw. He didn't have the talent, or not the talent, the ability to diagnose and live up to playing against some of those FBS schools. Now, when it comes to night and day, Moorhead talked about it, and Dracovic talked about it today, that, it's more that he's spent more time watching film. He's working on his fundamentals. He's building all that stuff. But to that extent too, Hafley also said he seemed like when he asked him if Moorhead was ready to be the starter day one, if something was to happen, I got a little sense of apprehension from him. Mitch, we're now entering the redshirt freshman year of Emmett Morehead. Like, where should he be developmentally wise in your eyes?
That is an interesting question. And, it's funny. You think about Jeff Hafley's apprehension to play Moorhead. You think about the game last year at Syracuse where he didn't even give Moorhead the start. He still gave Grisel the start. And then after Grisel proved ineffective against Syracuse, he finally made the move to Moorhead. And, Moorhead had, 2 or 3 nice plays, but a lot of the rest of his plays were not very good. And, I'm looking at some of his stats from PFF right now. And again, I'm not necessarily using their grades just because I'm just using their stats, which are a really good resource. So against Syracuse, he played a little bit against Wake, but I don't really care about that because that was garbage time. But in the 23 dropbacks against Syracuse, he threw the ball 15 times. He had 6 completions for 87 yards. On those 23 dropbacks, he was pressured on 8 of them, and 5 of those pressures turned into sacks. And that's a crazy high rate. So with Moorhead, what you're hoping is that he can, and this is kind of what we talked about Dracovic as well, is you want to see him essentially make the layups, take the easy stuff for the offense, make those quick completions that can keep the offense on schedule. Obviously he has the physical talent to, sling the ball far downfield. He had some decent plays as a runner as well, but he was a guy, and a lot of young quarterbacks do this, is essentially if their first read is not there, or if they are pressured quickly, they panic. And for a guy, like you said, that didn't play much his senior year and was kind of thrust into action on the road in a hostile environment, he did not perform well. And like looking at the schedule, I'm really hoping that, we really only have to see Moorhead in a maximum of 4 games. You're probably going to see him against Maine, obviously. Maybe he can do some opportunity against Rutgers if that game becomes a blowout. And then maybe the UConn and Duke games, maybe ideally those become blowouts and he maybe can play in the 4th quarter or something. But I don't think you really want him playing this year, because I think if you do, we obviously had our complaints about Dennis Grisel's play in 2021, but I think that at least with Grisel, there were times where the offense was it was slow but it was relatively on schedule. Whereas with Moorhead, I'd be very concerned that the offense would devolve into very chaotic, very erratic, where there'd be a lot of sacks, a lot more turnovers, a lot more interceptions, all that kind of, a lot more really catastrophically bad plays. Whereas with Grisel, he would, drop back to pass and he'd overthrow Zay. And like, that's not good. Obviously you don't want that, but that's better than, not seeing your first read get covered and then panicking, running backwards and then a sack fumble, So I think Moorhead is going to take that step forward, but I really don't think he's ready to be a consistent starter or even player for this team.
Yeah, I think one of the things Halfley brought up was, and the part that I didn't even think of was, yeah, he missed his senior year, but he also last year he was third on the depth chart to start the season. So going into summer, he wasn't even getting major reps. He was just kind of, he'd get, splitting reps with Dalen Menard and Matt Reeve and whoever else was on the depth chart, while Grisel and Jakovic got most of the snaps. So this is his first camp where he's actually getting those primary snaps as the backup, and you're seeing his name all over the place. I think what you said is perfect, right? Like, you want to just see him get all those snaps with the second team all year long. Continue to build confidence, his ability to read BC's own defense. And hopefully he's going to have, he even said it, he's got the natural talent. Like, he's got that arm, his size, which is like crazy and good. Having the ability to read it, watch the film, and understand everything, you feel much more confident that he'll be ready to go in 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think if he does play, and, especially if he's playing against the backups late in games or against just inferior opponents, I think you're going to see him, be able to keep the offense on schedule. And then, if a play does break down, he'll at least have the time to be like, okay, like, I can still try to figure this out and, kind of make a playoff schedule. But I think if he's thrust into action against, the real teams, the Clemsons, the Notre Dames, the, Florida State's, Wake Forest, I think then that could be a recipe for disaster. But I'm excited to see him kind of get the, I meant this. I think this is now that I'm kind of get a streak of mentioning the Steelers on this podcast, which I'm sure our New England fans love. Kenny Pickett gets in the first preseason game for the Steelers, and in basically the fourth quarter against, again, deep backups, but runs the offense efficiently. I think he was 13 of 15 for like 90 some yards and a touchdown, or 2 touchdowns actually. So, that's what you want to see. Like, you want to see him run the offense effectively, keep the ball moving forward, get the ball out of your hands quickly, get it into the playmaker's hands. So, the longer you hold on the ball, the more likely it is for a negative play at this point in your career, and maybe down the road, he develops into kind of the Jerkovic type where he can break out of those sacks, make crazy plays off schedule and throws off platform. But right now, I just want to see him, kind of be a traditional basic quarterback, if you will.
Right. And understand how to like step up into the pocket, make your second read.
That was something that, and granted, the offensive line did not give him any favors in that Syracuse game, but that was something that I thought he also really struggled with, was just pocket management. And that's a tough skill to learn. Like, that requires a lot of reps and practice. And, you learn that over many years of being a quarterback. So, I think it's not necessarily fair to be like, oh, this was really bad in your first game in college on the road, but, that was something that really kind of doomed his first effort. And I think that that's something that he's probably going to have to be improving on, throughout his entire career as a football player.
All right. And just a moment, Mitch and I are going to talk a little bit. He has some defensive statistics he wants to go over. And if you like stats, you're going to really enjoy what he has to talk about here. Now, I want to talk about my favorite thing, which is the Built Bar. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to my favorite, cookie dough chunk puffs. They have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, which is my favorite part. And of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it, and it's good for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are 160 calories, and they're a whopping 15 grams of protein. Telling you, this is the perfect treat for you and your family. Whether you need a snack on the go or a meal replacement, the Built Bar Puff can't be beat. So you're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff, Whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. There's the calories, fat, and sugar, grab yourself a Built Bar. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCKEDON15 at built.com. This is AJ Black here. Thank you to everyone who has made Locked On Boston College your first listen every morning. Now, if you are, on a walk or driving to work, and you plug up your phone and you hit that play button, thank you so much. We're 2 weeks away from the start of the college football season, and I cannot wait to talk about the 2022 Boston College Eagles with you 5 days a week. Now, Mondays are going to be with Mitch for the next couple months. Or it's actually all year usually with him, but we'll be talking about the season with him for the next couple months. And I can't wait to talk, about these games. So make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you listen on Spotify, iTunes, give us a 5-star review. It really does help people find our podcast and helps grow this little Boston College community. Now, Mitch, you said you had some defensive statistics. Both of us have been diving into deeper statistics lately. I have, after trashing them a little bit, have been enjoying getting into the Pro Football Focus stats. I got myself a subscription and have been using it for Eagle Insider on my player previews. Mitch, you have something a little different. Talk a little bit about what you've been looking into.
Yeah, so I recently got access to data from Sport Info Solutions, which is a company similar to PFF. They're out of Copley, Pennsylvania. And they do a lot of most of the stuff they do is NFL, but they also have this great team tendency app for looking at essentially a team's defensive tendencies, and whether it be formation or different alignments, or even they have some great pass rushing coverage statistics as well. So I think I talked a little bit about this on the spaces as well, but some of the things that really stick out to me is basically looking at these stats. You can tell BC is, at least in 2021, I'm not sure how much they'll probably stick with this a little bit in 2022 as well. But this was a team that was very married to playing cover 1 and cover 3 defenses. And, for those who don't know, cover 1 is a man defense where you have one defender deep, but the rest of the defense is in man. And cover 3 is a zone coverage where there are 3 defenders. That's essentially the field is divided into 3 deep zones, with usually the 2 outside corners and one of the safeties playing the deep middle. And the usage rates of these kind of plays are crazy. So they delineate these the types of plays into 1 high shells and 2 high shells, which essentially do you have 1 player covering deep or 2? And BC actually used 1 high shells at the 3rd highest rate of any team in college football last year. 520 snaps, which was 69%, and again 3rd in all of FBS. And then 2 high shells was only 25% of the time, which was 125th in college football. And combined with that, there's a concept called middle of the field closed, middle of the field open. It's essentially based on how the defense covers deep. Are they covering is there somebody over the middle of the field, or is there not, kind of right down the quarterback center? And essentially cover 3 and cover 1 are usually that's qualifies as middle of the field closed, whereas cover 2 and cover 4 is middle of the field open. And consistently with that 1 high shell, middle of the field coverage, BC used it 60% of the time, which is the 2nd highest usage rate in all of college football. And they only used middle of the field open coverage 36 plays, 10% of the time, which was 130th. So last. They were literally last in middle of the field open coverage. So what this tells me is that because BC is so confident in their corners, last year they Brandon Sebastian and Elijah Jones and Josh DeBerry. This year they'll probably have Josh DeBerry, Elijah Jones, and maybe CJ Burton play on the outside. And essentially what they want to do is they want to force college quarterbacks to take deep shots down the sideline, because those are kind of, high variance throws. They don't want to give up easy throws over the middle. They want to make quarterbacks take these kind of risky throws to the outside, because most college quarterbacks, they want it. They want easy. They want it over the middle. They want to see their receiver and kind of hit them in stride, as opposed to trying to kind of locate them down, on vertical routes down the side of the field. So now some quarterbacks obviously, like to throw it deep, but they're not as accurate. And, with essentially the whole secondary, besides Brandon Sebastian coming back, I can't imagine they're really going to change this strategy and philosophy in 2022.
Right. And it sounds like, you would do that now because I feel like there's even more talent back there. You got Jason Maitre coming back. And I like some of the talent that they have around them, some of the corners that you're seeing coming in and the talent around them. Do you think this is a solid strategy at the college level? I feel like if you're forcing a college quarterback, most of the time these quarterbacks, unless you're facing, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young are going to struggle to hit those passes.
Absolutely. Because, and like, again, with how much RPOs are used in college football today by pretty much any team, even just think about Wake Forest, like quarterbacks want that quick, easy slant or quick, throw over the middle where they don't have to, they can kind of just keep looking straight and then just, don't have to adjust their body at all. So you kind of essentially have to force quarterbacks to have really good timing, really good accuracy deep down the field to the outside. And, you're essentially forcing these 50-50 shots, which, for a defense, that's, you kind of want that. And so it is interesting though. So these usage rates also come with a positive play percentage, which this is from the point of view of the offense. So, I say this was the usage rate. They allowed a positive play 45% of the time, which ranked 88th in college football when they used one high shells. And when they were when middle of the field was closed, they allowed the positive play 40% of the time, 44% of the time, which was 60th in college football. So, I think that you're playing that is still a sound strategy because you are forcing those like high variance throws. And essentially, if the offense can consistently do that and beat you, then, more power to them, because that is something that it's difficult for different opponents to consistently do, given the variance in quarterback talent, given the variance in receiver talent, and the relationship between those two players.
All right. Was there any other stats? We only have a couple quick minutes. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Interestingly, so they had if you look at the pass rush tendencies, they actually blitz 34% of the time, which was the 24th highest blitz rate in college football. Looking for some positive play stats. Even though so here's another one. So they used man coverage on 123 snaps, which was 33%. That's the 30th highest usage rate. They generated positive plays on 37%. They only allowed positive plays on 37% of those snaps, which was 35th in college football. So, I think you're seeing a lot of essentially what these numbers tell you is that BC is playing a lot of cover one, and for the most part, they're pretty successful when they play that.
All right. Well, that's some interesting stuff. I love hearing more of the X's and O's that, maybe as a general fan, you may not see.
Here's an example. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but there is an article that I was editing for my other site where essentially for really good quarterbacks can defeat cover one. Like you have to be like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, because you have to like find the ideal matchup and attack it like with great timing. And obviously most college quarterbacks are not Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, or what have you.
Right. Okay. Well, we're out of time. So, Mitch, how can people follow you on social media and tell them about your new project?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolfe, WOLFE on Twitter. And so like I said last week, right now I am the editor, or one of the editors, for the 33rd team on the betting and fantasy side. So obviously football season's approaching, you're probably scheduling out your fantasy drafts. So I highly recommend you come over to the 33rd team and check out all the content we have over there. We work with a ton of former NFL legends. I'm talking Bill Parcells, Marvin Lewis, Brett Favre, Rondé Barber, Bill Polian. We just had Wade Phillips publish an article talking about stop playing starting quarterbacks in the preseason. Mike Zimmer just is working with us, Matt Castle, Mike Martz. Just if you watch the NFL essentially in the 2000s, the 2010s, like you're going to see names that you're very familiar with. So I would highly recommend you come over to our site, check out the betting stuff, and also just check out our football stuff. It's a great way to become a smarter football fan.
All right. I'll definitely be checking that out too, Mitch. All right. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack_BC. Again, we'll be back tomorrow to talk camp. BC is holding today their first scrimmage of the summer, and we'll have some updates after the practice on that. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care, everyone.